So what's the key sticking point here? If it's a stalemate at the moment, what's the sticking point?
Look, it's around market access. It's around what opportunities are available to red meat producers, so beef and sheep meat, to sugar, to dairy. How can we get arrangements that make those products more competitive on supermarket shelves in Europe? That's essentially it. So we're talking, tariffs and quotas and these sorts of things that make Australian food and fibre more competitive on EU shelves. And these agreements are, at the end of the day, Pete, they're preferential or free trade agreements. So we have to have better than what we started with, and that's where the challenge
Okay.
is. We've got access to the EU market for some of these products, but we need to get better access.
So you want better access, but the EU is also worried about too much Australian product coming in, therefore EU producers not getting as much money as they wanted.
Well, yes, and that's where it gets down to a little bit of detail. You think about the amount of dairy products, for example, that come into Australia, and reciprocally the amount of dairy products that we ship to the EU. Now it's about 300 times in their favour. So it's not like Australian producers are going to flood the EU market anytime soon, and that's part of the negotiations. The reality is that we're in a trade deficit with the EU in terms of when it comes to agriculture. We just want to even that up a little bit.
Okay. I saw the Prime Minister, he signed up to Germany's Green Club. I just assumed that this was all going to be part of the EU trade deal. I mean, can the EU be really that interested in our minerals, which is what they're after at the moment as a kind of a quid pro quo, right?
They're definitely interested in some of our minerals. There's other issues that form part of this agreement. Agriculture is always one of the more trickier ones and one of the more sensitive ones, but it is much broader than agriculture, of
Mm.
course. But our advice to government has been, and they've accepted that from Prime Minister Albanese to Murray Watt to Minister Farrell, that they shouldn't sign this agreement if it isn't good for Australian farmers. And that's the position we're currently at. So we're not unhappy. We want to get an agreement, but we've, congratulate the government because they have stood firm and backed our advice not to
I,
sign this agreement
okay.
because it's not in the interest of Australian farmers.
Just a final one here before you go, Tony. You got that massive decision that's going to be made this week on phasing out caged eggs, that they are going to skyrocket. Egg prices are going to skyrocket now. I mean, do you have a position on that and where that's heading just before you go?
Yeah, look, the industry's got to remain competitive. We've seen the prices of food and groceries continue to skyrocket. At the same time, we have to, align up with and match consumer expectations. So there has to be a bit of a balance there, Pete. Unfortunately, the price of eggs and other products will continue to rise because the inputs are continuing to rise, the input costs. So whether that's labour or, free range environment for chickens and eggs, that'll put costs on Australian farmers, which will mean the prices will have to rise.
By how much would you say?
Oh, it'll depend on producer to producer and where you buy your eggs, Pete, I think.
Okay.
But suffice to say, the more costs that are being placed on farmers, they have to pass those costs on. So prices are going to continue to go up if we see continued trajectory in some of these spaces.
Tony, appreciate your time. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.